wonderful educators, all you wonderful listeners to the second panel discussion of Digital Education Summit and Awards 2022. Universal Mentors Association is extremely humbled to welcome the next panel to you. It is, again, as I said, it is a definite superstar panel discussion with all the, really, really seasoned educators that you would be seeing throughout, the panels on various platforms joining us for this amazing panel. And it is the topic that not usually is talked very common, specifically when these stalwarts of education come together. So we're talking about changing trends in the admission procedures, how technology has impacted the admission procedure in the in the intake of the students. So I would like to welcome Mr. Sudhir Kukreja, who's the moderator for this amazing panel, who's the co-founder and CEO of Credence EduTech. Uh, uh, Ms. Shalini Nambiar, who's the Director Principal of State Anandram Jaipuria School, Vasundhara. Mr. Deepak Sharma, who's the Director of Rockwood's Group of Schools. Uh, Mr. Kanak Gupta, Director, State MR Jaipuria Group of Schools. Dr. Kavita Vinaychand, who's the CEO of MD and Edify Education. Mr. Srinivas, who's the CEO of Gyan Marga Technologies. I think this is an esteemed panelist. We might be joined by Mr. Rikirit Sarai later during the panel discussion. So I'll not take, I think whenever we have these panels, we give them a time of an hour and it never justifies it. So I'll not take a single second away from these amazing panelists and the listeners that we have with us today. Sudhir sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. Truly an honor and a pleasure hosting this August panels. Anything said about the panelists that I have on board today is any day much lesser to describe, but I won't go into the introduction part. I believe each one of them is really a renowned personality in the educational fraternity across the country. So really doesn't call for any kind of an introduction. Thank you to the team Universal Mentors for putting together and bringing us together on this platform. And I must congratulate them for a topic which is chosen today, which is slightly offbeat. I was just talking before the session to all the panelists that I'm really excited about this topic taken, because I guess this is something which is every educator, every education leader's, area of concern. Maybe something in the process, if each one of us can spill some beans, bring out some business secrets, and put it out for some people to, kind of utilize those methods in order to make things better at their end. I guess we all of us put together as educational fraternity would probably be able to add some value to each other. And I guess that's what is the whole objective and purpose of all these panel discussions and the meets that we do to uplift the entire education fraternity across the country and make a larger difference to the nation at large. So without wasting much time, I think I'll go straight away to the topic. The topic that we're discussing today is the admissions. I think over the last 2 years of pandemic, we've had enough amount of discussion on how technology has impacted education space, whether it is, the learning apps or the learning platforms, or are we talking about, various AI tools or, X number of things that we've been introduced, education fraternity, teachers, school managements, each one of them, I think, have taken a huge leap in terms of technology adoption in the last 2 years. And I guess that has been a blessing in disguise for the entire, schooling fraternity. But I think the topic at hand today that we have is how the things have changed for the admission procedure, which is probably the interface between the school managements, the school admission teams, the counselors, etc., and of course our ultimate customers and the parents who are, ultimately experiencing this admission process as a part. Yes, our education system, our academic processes have really undergone a complete transformation. But now I believe once all of us are going back to a physical space, there are some hybrid models being explored. And of course, there is a big buzz about some online schools across the world also. So I believe this calls for another transformation which is going to take in the education space. And this might just be the beginning of a completely new era in education, which could probably, completely online, or maybe a couple of unexplored territories and, structures which we might just see in the years to come. So I guess let's get on to this and hear from our stalwarts what exactly that they are doing in their space. What are the initiatives taken? How those initiatives have impacted their institutions? What can we learn from each one of them? And maybe what are the challenges and what are the tools which we can probably take from them? I'll go straight to Mr. Kanak Gupta. Um, right. I believe, Kanak, you've been handling a large number of schools across the country. I'm sure the institutions have gone through a major transformation in terms of technology adoption. If you could throw some light on how is it on the admission procedure front. I'm sure each one of us understand that how critical a function it is. And now that the parents are located remotely, they're reaching us through websites and Facebooks and whatnot. There are 100 medium for us to communicate. How have you gone about bringing about this transformation, and what is a new experience that can be experienced with your schools around?
Thank you so much, Sudhir. And first of all, brilliant topic. My congratulations to you and Sandeep for selecting this topic. And thank you so much to all the co-panelists who will be contributing to this discussion. I'm really excited about this. Well, in the fraternity, and like you rightly said, that in the last 2 years we've been talking about the involvement of technology in the teaching learning process and schools. Admissions has always been the holy cow of our system. Admissions has always been the driver of sort of the education. And sometimes when I would say this, people would look at it in a very wrong way. But I think the time has come where we accept it, that it's not just about selection and rejection, but about matching. There has to be some kind of understanding whereby students, parents, and teachers, schools match with each other. And I believe that technology plays a very important role with that matching process, because it gives information instantaneously, there's personalization, and more importantly, it gives choice to the parent as well as the student. What we've done is that, while we look at admissions, a very important aspect for our schools, we run 43 schools pan-India, 30,000 students with us right now. And what we've done is we look at it as a matching process. There's a lot of information that is automated. It's not automatic, but automated. We give chatbots to the students. They can reach out to us. They can ask questions. Parents can look at the school in action. We want to give the child experience of the classroom. Go ahead, tell us what you need. And we try to customize it for every child, because for us, it might be 30,000 students. For the parent, it's that one child. And they want to have that choice. And why not give them that choice? Why not use technology to actually make that happen? One thing that's happened over the last few years, this setback that everyone had, that I do not know technology and I don't have access to technology, that went away. It went away from the schools. It went away from the teachers. Companies like Momsco have ensured that it has gone away from the tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. And courtesy to Mukesh Ambani, we all have access to good network as well. So there's been a lot of change that's happened, and we'll see a lot more change coming up. We need to be predictive. We need to be personalized. And that's the entire focus, Sudhir, with which we have planned our admission experience for all our students. Matching is the key. Personalization is the key. Over to you, Sudhir.
That's fantastic. I think that is the buzzword. We are talking about personalization. And I believe online education is something which has truly made it possible to, bring about that personalization in the process of delivery of academics. And I'm glad this is coming on the admission table as well. I'll move on to Mr. Deepak Sharma to throw some light on what is transpiring in your institutions. How have you gone about this change before I dwell deeper into the topic and bring the other panelists on board?
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I am really happy to see the topic, because last 2 years, whatever panel discussion we were happening, they were on a different direction. And for the first time, this is a little out of the box, as Mr. Kanak also picked it up correctly on that. See, when we talk about admissions, the first thing I would like to say, the only thing which is permanent is change. And coming from a tier 2 city or tier 3 city, I would say, online was a struggle for us till 2 years back. Now, last 2 years, if we see what has happened, is there's a drastic change in the mindset of people which has happened. So Corona also turned out to be a blessing in disguise when it comes down to the digitalization of education for us. And as correctly been pinpointed by my earlier speaker, that thanks a lot to the technology, it is everywhere, irrespective of villages or smaller towns or towns like us or the metros. So yes, I agree that last 2 years have been the period of evolution, innovation, and changes for all of us, and we all have adapted technology like never before. Uh, Earlier, this was for pedagogical procedures, but now when we see there's a trend which is happening is that most of the inquiries for admissions, it is coming online. Earlier, being a smaller town, we used to see that people are walking, they have all the time in the world. They used to come, in a group of 4 5 for one admission. This has been our experience. And for by God's grace, if the child was for the boarding house, I think there were 10 people who were escorting just to see the school, to experience, to meet the teachers, to see the curriculum. They used to happily sit at the cafeteria, mess, test the food, and used to go. This was our experience till 2 years back. Now, in last 2 years, we get one inquiry, whether it's through uh, Google search or Facebook or Instagram, and then most of the queries are handled via phone only. So inquiries are being raised, they've been dealt over phone, and just for formality's sake, when they're coming to drop, dropping the children. If they want to have some kind of virtual tour, they ask that can we see the classrooms? We send a virtual classrooms, we send the photographs, videos of the school, and this is how the inquiries has been closing from past year. Last year, this trend was not there. This trend, I could see there's a change which has happened last year and this year. This year also, when there's a peak admissions times going on, when I'm talking to you, I can see there are a lot of people around here for inquiring for admissions. So these people, they have done first process online and then they have visited school, most of them. If I say most, this number right now, as per my record, because for this panel discussion, I was just taking out the online discussion thing, more than 90% of the parents who have visited school this year for admission inquiry, the first inquiry has been made online. So if this shift can be seen in a place like Udaipur, which is a tier 2 city, I'm sure there is a major shift in the mindset of the people which is happening. Thank you.
Well, you really brought out the buzzwords, Mr. Deepak. I guess there was 2-3 words which I literally had the back of my mind to bring in to the discussion. You really put them on the table, whether it is virtual tours, whether it is online inquiries, whether it is the digital marketing of the school. I think, the team out here who's organized this panel, Universal Mentors, should pick up one of those things for a workshop on digital marketing that probably schools need very, very urgently. And I believe for our audience, that's the most critical thing. And I'd like to dwell into those much deeper with all the esteemed panelists. But before that, I think I'll come to Ms. Kavita and would want to understand first thing, like, of course, Mr. Deepak has mentioned, he's got almost 90% inquiries in Udaipur, which are coming online. And in fact, on my side as well, I actually dig out this data. From one of my schools, we are almost close. We had about 87% of the inquiries which have come online. Right. So I believe the numbers are matching across, and that's a big takeaway for all our listeners and viewers. Kavita, how has it been with like 85 schools across? Have you gone completely online in terms of the admission process? Do you think it can actually become a completely online process with application through websites or social media, or maybe the virtual tours, etc., that we're talking about? Or, like he said, Mr. Deepak mentioned, the physical tour still remains a part of thing. I believe it would remain with that 10%. But maybe your opinion on that.
Thanks for the question. And I completely agree that there will be a large portion which will still not be digitalized. But before that, let me first say that generating inquiries digitally, I think, started quite some time back, much before the pandemic. All of us moved from, I think, typical paper ads and hoardings to Google ads and search engine optimization and digital media optimization. At least with us, we started it about 7 years back. We had stopped doing outdoor marketing 7 years back. We've just completely moved digital in terms of inquiry generation. And for Edify, we have schools across the spectrum. I have schools at Hyderabad, Pune, which are IB schools, Bangalore. And we also have schools in small places like Lakhani, Sindhanur, where Lakhani, for example, total population is less than 50,000. Right? First generation learners. Parents have not gone to school. Kids are the first time they're going to school. So we really have a spectrum there. But inquiry generation to a great extent in urban cities has gone digital. Now, when it comes to conversion phase, and I think that during the pandemic has evolved so much for our metro schools or schools in the tier 2, up to the tier 2 cities, We have done everything virtually, right from giving virtual presentations, virtual tours, virtual application form, payment online, virtual counseling, skill aptitude tests online using artificial intelligence, and like Kanak said, finding the right fit for the parent and for the school both. Giving them the right kind of questions so they know what should they expect from the school and seeing if that's the right fit for them. All of that has gone online, including automated emails to confirm admission or otherwise. Everything is being digitalized automated for us at our metro urban schools. But when it comes to the tier 3, tier 4, I would say like schools like Lakshmi, because they're first generation parents, they're still not comfortable filling a file online. For them, the touch and feel is very important. For them to go and experience a school in person is very important. It's an emotional decision and not just a decision as to, okay, can I afford the school or not? Is the school nice or not? It's a lot of emotional connect for them with the school. And hence for these cities, it's important that the school still has provision for people to visit. Like Mr. Sharma said, the whole family would come in to see how the school, if it's a boarding school, and I completely relate to it. Smaller cities, all the more. The other aspect is children with special needs. This is another area where we cannot, as of now, we've tried quite a bit to digitalize that process, but we see that there is a requirement for a lot of personal intervention and talk with these children, meeting their therapists. So for inclusive schools, that is another area where we have not been able to completely automate the admission process. But otherwise, to a great extent in our, like I said, in our urban city schools, it's completely automated. In fact, we see the child for the first time after they've come to school. Even their induction, their orientation, we put a buddy system where we connect the student to a new student to an existing student online. So they chat, they communicate, do all of that online even before they come to school. But there will definitely be a component which will have to be in person. The touch and feel part of it will remain, I feel. Thank you, Sudhir.
That's very interesting, I guess, Kavita. So that's a lot of food for thought, and I believe enough material for us to discuss for a couple of hours. But I believe this is something which could probably be a takeaway for a lot of our listeners and our audiences right here. And I completely relate to the part where we are talking about maybe a tier 3 or a tier 4 cities where we also have some schools. I think it's, and the point of it being an emotional decision is very valid. It's something which has always been a part of our education fraternity, and I believe it will remain. Yeah, but at the same time, I think I'm really glad and happy to hear about various automation of processes which is coming in. And I think that is something which is probably the need of the hour for every progressive school to adopt. And like Kavita mentioned, yes, we had already started generating leads long back, but I think what has now happened in this process is that there's a lot of interaction which is happening. So Kanak mentioned about the chatbots, we've automated various emailers, etc. Those are the kind of things which have gone beyond just a lead generation. Now it's like a qualification of lead or maybe even conversion to a very large extent. I'll move on to Ms. Shalini Nambiar. Ma'am, I think you are in a front driver's seat, unlike all 3 of us or 4 of us, where you have a direct connect with the parents, with the children. How are you seeing parents experiencing this? What is their feedback? What's the experience that is coming out on the table, on the ground, which could probably be a food for thought for 4 of us right here?
So very good question. And as everybody said, a very interesting topic, because I think the school can't exist if there are no admissions. So that becomes a very, priority area. Regarding this, I mean, everybody is automated, when we come to the sessions, virtual sessions, filling up the form, all the data analysis, everything is automated. But when it comes to the parent, I think Kavita put up a very important point. In India, we take decisions with emotions. We want to see the school, we want to feel the school. And I still feel, being in the tier A city, I mean, Ghaziabad is like that. You still have a certain parent profile who want to come and visit the school, who want to see what is happening. In fact, we introduced a very nice thing that you can view the classroom. We called it, be a child for a day, where you can view inside the classroom what is happening. And we did a lot of virtual parenting session. Of course, digitally, it's become much more effective. because like you can meet each and every parent individually, and it's very efficient, and I think you can manage time. But if I look at from the parents' point of view, they are missing the touch and the feel of the school. They want to come to school, they want to see, like, I'll be honest, like I'm seeing you virtually, and I'm sure if I meet you face to face, you're like, oh my God, you were the same person who I saw you virtually. And it has happened with me now because I'm meeting so many people. So I think that feeling is there in the parent. So I think when we talk about digital advancement and everything, of course, we have advanced in systems and processes and everything, but I think we need to go a little step further and make them experience that, which becomes very important at the time of admission. Make them experience the classroom. Like if we are taking a virtual school tour, just a suggestion, rather than having a recorded video of the whole school tour, take them at that moment, like a live tour, like, okay, I'm taking you here, because you develop much more connect with the parents, because at the time of admissions, what is important is, like Kanak said, my child is the most important, right? And I want the best school and the best teacher and best everything. So making that connect digitally is very important. And I think I'll be happy to say that, yes, we have been able to achieve that. But yes, there are roadblocks because, that as Kavita said, 15% parents still want to visit the school, and it's fine. Now things are fine. But I think, 2 years back, it may not be, 1.5 years back, it was not possible. But now parents are able to visit. So we make sure that they are staggered, the timings are staggered, and we take them. But yeah, we need to advance the AI technology where we let them experience firsthand that emotional connect in the classroom and the teacher. I mean, I'm a grandmom today, right? I would not, I would like to go and see the school if I'm admitting, because meet the teachers, see what it is. Because there are a lot of things virtually you cannot make out, So I'm being a devil's advocate, talking from the other side, but yeah, we are just hoping that things get back to normal, because I think everybody is missing that. Yeah, over to you, Sudhi.
Ma'am, I think you very beautifully weaved the two things which Kanak and Kavita had put together. So one, of course, the need for an emotional connect can never be ruled out of an education system. I think that's our foundation. That's what we do when we are nurturing kids, right? More than anything else, we have the need for the RS to build that emotional intelligence and connect and empathy towards the society. I believe that's something which is there. And of course, when you say that the tour should be live, you're actually connecting that emotional thing to the technology that you want to bring into the system. Well, before I go to Mr. Srinivas, I think I want to come back to Kanak for a follow-up question. Kanak, I have this question to you in terms of what Ms. Nambiar and Kavita both have mentioned right here. You running a large chain of schools, right? And we've, in a nutshell, to summarize last 15 minutes of discussion, we need automation, we need virtual tours, we need emotional connect, we need these processes to be brought in. But, when it comes to a system like yours, where you have a huge number of schools spread across, I think that is equally applicable to even Kavita there. How do you prepare the staff? How do you prepare the system? How do you prepare the people who are responsible at different ends to be, driving this? How do you bring in such systems, make them understand each one of them so that we all are in the same, process, same page of understanding of how to implement that, and make sure that we are doing justice to our brands and giving a seamless experience to each parent who's probably landing in our school in a tier 1 or a tier 2 or a tier 3 city?
That's a great question. And, the whole idea is that I feel strongly that we need to find the problem and then take help of technology to solve that problem. Technology is actually not the driver. As Shalini ji was also saying that, emotion is very important. So yes, scalable, measurable, replicable, but more importantly, we tell for any system that we design, we always look at, listen, assimilate, and then implement. So you listen to parents. How can you best listen to parents? What can be the ways to gather that information from the students? Assimilate that. So your CRM or your ERP then has to be designed in a way that it gets assimilated that way. And then implement as to what can be the suggestions coming, because I feel good ideas will come from a lot of teachers, a lot of parents. For us to have our staff, our partners onboarded, we conduct regular trainings. Now, technology has made sure that the trainings, orientations have become much simpler. They've become much more effective. They've become much more personalized. So parents also get an idea about it as to what's happening at the school as an experience, instead of actually getting a superficial idea with Google AdWords or just raw Facebook pages. There's a lot of experience sharing that is happening. It's more real, it's more raw, and from a sales process, like I said before, it's become a matching process where we're not just looking at admission forms reaching out, we're not just looking at getting the seats filled up, but genuinely providing the best learning experience to every child. So everything that we do, you first listen, you assimilate, and then you implement. And then technology takes a backseat because technology is only the enabler. Technology is not a box product that is driving us. That, as an educator, makes a lot of difference to us.
That's great. I'm sure that is exactly what is the need of the hour, where you put together those systems, you put together and you put forward, I think, the need of the parent. That's the real key word which I would want to take. I'll go on to Mr. Srinivas and bring in a new dimension to this entire discussion. So while we all are gearing up to go back to physical schools, while we all have had our own share of learnings, in terms of the online schooling and digitization across various systems and processes, I think there's a new word that has come up in the last couple of months that's called hybrid schooling. And I believe there are a lot of takers for that new model also in the market today. Of course, it's at a nascent stage and we are still evolving in that process. Mr. Srinivas, from your standpoint, given your experience in the industry, in the space, how do you see this space evolving, and how does the admission process and the adoption by the parents become a different experience for a parent now getting into this kind of a model? And how do you think a school should also be prepared for that?
Firstly, thanks. It's a wonderful panel. Many schools today, they are forced to go to hybrid learning because of COVID, and this year with schools reopening, many parents, they want the social distancing, they want the small class sizes, and this has, further expanded the need for hybrid learning. At Jnanamarga, we take pride in providing a road to success for all students. And we have a virtual classroom platform that integrates a mix of learning. One is live learning. We also have a learning management system, but we also integrate the ebook with an app-based platform. And so we actually see ourselves as a tribrid Web 3.0 platform. Students have maximum interactive learning time. So that is an important aspect of this. There is now in-classroom education, there is live lectures, live tutorials, and finally, they have a third medium, which is the ebook integrated with videos and self-assessment. And so there is self-learning there. This requires, of course, most importantly, the teacher and the physical classroom. Then second, the teacher with the Zoom. And then third, where there is less of a teacher, but the power of the internet as a medium. So this is actually the third mode. Now, the student can use, if they want 24/7, they can do test prep through this medium, and they can also, do a significant part of today's admission requirement if necessary. We have 3 different test preps for the NEET and the JEE, but we also do the class 12 test preps. We have CBSE 12, and now we also have GSEB 12, and now with we also take on with on this International Mother Language Day. We also started Gujarati medium. So schools today face that learning loss, and that is very evident because of COVID, and some students have forgotten the idea of learning. Some of them have lost almost a year plus of school. Many processes have changed, there are classes that are recorded. Students have to turn to these new modalities. Now, this multi-modal, multi-channel approach can be extended, can be embraced, by schools and teachers, and so that the students, who have fallen behind can catch up. So they have to work with parents, they have to work with teachers, and they have to make hybrid learning an asset, and recoup the learning loss. Otherwise, there will be more work for students and there will be more work for decision makers. Today, parents want to see their children get ahead, and students don't want to be left behind either. So there is a hyper competitive world, we will go back to that shortly. So integrated learning with hybrid and tribrid is the way forward. So finally, we also work with upskilling, and so that is also done partly using the hybrid and tribrid models. And so that is the way forward with NEP as these things evolve, as I see it.
Well, I think that's another dimension which we as school managements are still exploring. And I believe I'll bring in my other co-panelists on the thing to probably share some light on that. Maybe Mr. Deepak Sharma could probably give us some insights on how do you see, Deepak, this aspect of learning? I've been hearing this buzzword, hybrid learning. There are, in fact, I'll be honest. So as far as my schools are concerned, we also operate, schools across tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 cities. While there is a good demand in tier 1, tier 2 cities, probably for a certain level of hybrid requirement, specifically from a class of people who are probably working in an IT industry or something like that. Those are a set of people who are maybe still comfortable with the idea of a hybrid learning. But do you think this is something which is happening in a tier 3 and tier 4 kind of a city as well? Is that kind of a requirement there, or are we still a little far off in terms of that evolution?
See, when we talk about tier 2 and tier 3, with my own experience, what I feel is that hybrid mode of education still needs a lot of polishing. This is right now at a very initial stage. Our experience with hybrid mode of teaching was not so good, to be very honest, because it's a human tendency. If there are children sitting in front of you, automatically the concentration goes over to these children. If we want to make hybrid successful, I think we need to change the whole process how with the teaching is being done. Maybe we need to come up with studios where the focus is absolutely going on the children who are online. And then there's a separate set of students who've been like the offline students, the separate teachers, set of teachers who are teaching them. But when we say that we are going to club both the things, physical and online students, in the same classroom, it will be a challenge. And so far, my experience has been that this mode needs lot of working on it right now. Though there are many companies which are there, they're offering a lot of softwares, there are products, but when you come down to a physical teaching, when the teacher is there right now, like if, for example, if I'm taking a session right now and there are 4 people sitting in front of me, automatically the diversion is going to go there rather than coming down over here on the screen. So I think this needs a lot of polishing, especially for the place where I belong to. This has been my experience with hybrid mode of teaching so far.
Well, I agree to an extent. I would say I think that the scenario is quite different when it comes to a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 city, and maybe I believe Kavita is quite qualified to comment on that. How do you see this scenario, Kavita? How are things shaping up in different cities? Maybe if you could just throw some light on.
Mm-hmm. I'll answer 2 questions. One that you had asked earlier about intervention of the team in the admission process, but before that, I'll answer this question. While we are talking about online hybrid kind of education, it is a fact that learning outcomes have dropped considerably. If you look at the statistics that have been released by government bodies, it says learning outcomes have dropped by 48% in the online model, and this is in metros. In smaller cities, it's worse. It's dropped down to 72%, which is sad for the students. Today, when these children are coming back to school in the smaller cities, they are at least a year behind their expected learning outcome. And it's not that the schools have not done a good job. They've used the best technology in place. The teachers were trained, but still the fact is the child's adaptability to a learning environment, which is like that, is certainly needs to be considered. And not only that, I think during COVID, the fact that the cutoff from the social world, right, the cutoff from their peer group, that played such an emotional impact on these kids. So to expect them to sit in front of a screen, that's the only time they get to see their friends as such on the screen time, and then to focus on what the teacher is teaching, and then to be able to. So I always, whenever I meet these technology companies, I always tell them, please tell me what has been an improvement in the student learning outcome. Give me data. Because that really makes a big difference to see how successful it has been. I mean, just talking, conversing, engaging is different. Here we are talking about measurable results at the end of the year. And there has to be that kind of data that needs to be released for any school, for any educator to be able to adapt and embrace the technology completely. right? That's the first part of it. So there are learning drops, and I think there's a lot of work to be done in the area of connect, holding a child's interest. I wouldn't say time and attention, but I would say engaging them in a fun manner. Like, one of the things that we realized made things fun for the children is having competitions with giving them. We created something called, in line with Bitcoin, I mean, the new currency, debatable currency. We created our own coins, and we said, okay, the children who do well, they go up on the leaderboard, they get these coins. Some of these things work. So we've been experimenting so much on what works for children to have them there, to show measurable results, right? The second aspect, Sudhir, though this question was not to me, but there's just one bit that I wanted to add there is, while I was in US just 2 weeks back, and I was on a panel there, and they were telling me that here in so many schools and colleges, the students don't even meet the counselors, right? In university applications, in many high school applications or school applications, the students who are applying or the parents who are applying never meet the admission counselors. Everything is online. The decisions are made back end, and decisions are just announced to the students. So they were asking me, do you think India will get there some point in time? And I said, we are way, way behind something like this. And I don't think we would want to get into something like this as well. For us, the counsel, for the parent to know, I have somebody whom I can connect to in the school. Somebody who's not a teacher, who's not directly impacted to my child, but I can pick up the call and say, hey, look, I have this question. Can I get an honest answer from you? I know you're an employee, but can I still get an honest answer from you for this? That's so important. So preparing the team to understand that the technology is going to give you data. For example, when we put the whole admission process, when we automate it, to exactly see how many people from application form move to the stage of virtual tour, from virtual tour move to the stage of counseling, how many dropped out at which stage of the inquiry process, why did they drop out? Call them, talk to them, find out what did not connect for them. Did they not find it interesting, or did they have a challenge with the user interface? And that talking gave parents a lot more comfort. That helped them decide faster, that made them realize that though there is a technology, there is a person behind that screen who's looking at what I'm doing, who's understanding my needs and connecting to me. So training the admission team or all the stakeholders who are involved, including the academic coordinators, principals across our schools, as to how do you use the data that is generated from this process, analyze the data and get the right touch points at the right time. Help the conversion process quite a bit. Sorry, though this was not my question, Sudhir, I had to answer this.
No, that was quite insightful, and I think a lot relatable. In fact, I can probably share an anecdote which probably was there in one of my schools yesterday itself. We had 3 people who came in for an inquiry, did an on-the-spot admission, and before they actually signed the document, they told the school counselor, it's because of you and your nature and your connect that we are doing it. And I was like, wow, I'm so proud of you that even without involving an academic coordinator or a principal or anybody else, at that stage, if you could give that comfort to a parent, I don't think as a school owner or a school management, I can expect anything more than that. So you've really done the job bang on the spot itself. So a parent, like you said, the parent is practically looking for a human touch, a human connect, whom a person is basically, relying on that, okay, and this is what I tell all my ambassadors, counselors, most of the time, that you are the face of the school. It's not me, it's always you. If you are the one who's giving the comfort to the parent that, okay, I am there for you the day you need it, the moment you need any help or a clarification or anything, the job is done, right? And that's exactly what is the most important aspect of it. With this, I think I'll go back to Ms. Shalini. Ma'am, too many technology tools, I guess. So Kavita has already highlighted the need for the tools that we're using. Kanak talked about the ERP systems, and I believe there hardly are any schools in the country now who are not using these tools. I think what I'd like you to throw some light on is, one, how do you select the right tools for your school, right? Whether it is to create a virtual platform or a virtual tour, or to do maybe a chatbot, or to do some email automation system, or maybe an online application on your website, and maybe the scrutiny, and like Kavita mentioned, an online screening test, etc. And fairly convinced that with the evolution of the technology in the last couple of years, there are enough number of tools available. What I'd like you to throw some light on, and maybe connect at a later stage on the same, how do you evaluate the right product? How do you choose that, okay, this is what is befitting my requirement?
Yeah, very tough question. So, we are flooded with tools all around. 50% of them are available free online. 50% you need to purchase, and they customize it for you. Whatever tools you may purchase the best. How are you going to analyze? Because the person who has made it is going to, of course, tell us this is the best, right? But what is most important? I don't think so. It's so much about the tool, like maybe something as simple as a poll on a Zoom. It is about how effectively the teachers are able to use it. So I think the focus is more about, are we training them enough? Because what is happening right now, we are purchasing tools. We are, announcing all over social media, we are this trained school and we are this and we are this. But what about the teachers? Has anybody asked them, are they able to utilize it effectively? And to be very honest, I want to, in fact, butt in and to what Deepak said. It's not only tier 3. Hybrid model is really, really not working. Because again, as you said, the emotional connect is missing. The teachers cannot focus. So we have adopted a lot of tools, but what we feel, how do we select them? Of course, we have a group of teachers. It's a simple process. They analyze it, they see its effectiveness, and then we go in for it. Of course, the one important factor is the cost, right? But I think what we need to focus, and I'll be honest, in India, what happens, there's a difference in India. In India, we are very good in selling. We are expert in marketing a product. I'm telling you with experience, you want to buy a simple washing machine, they'll come and tell you all the best things. So the companies are focusing a lot on the marketing people, but very less on the after-sales service. And that is what is required. If my teacher has a problem, you say you have 24 hours help. I'm talking about a lot of tools available. You call them, they will say, we'll get back to you, madam, tomorrow. And that is the reason where I think the companies really, you can see a lot of edtech tools came up, lot went, they came and they ayaram, who I last 2 years, maybe all know. But why is it so? Because there is no importance. There should be a focus on teachers' training. Are we training them enough how to use that? Are we doing a self-evaluation at the school level, how effectively it is being utilized? And as Kavita said, are we seeing that the learning outcomes, is it measurable? Or are we just doing it as a showpiece for the parents that, okay, we are using this tool? I have seen, I've just taken over this organization. Last 2 years, I've been doing my own consultancy. I'm a qualified audit expert. I've done audit in the last 2 years of around maybe close to 100 schools. Let me tell you, I've seen teachers using the breakout room, then forgetting about the children in the breakout room. They just forget that they have to get them back. How do I personalize it? Because so that is what the effectiveness of a tool can only be measured if we see we can measure the learning outcome. We can pick up any tool, but unless the teachers are trained, unless after selling the service, there is a lot of support provided, no tool will succeed in this time. I'm being honest. We will purchase a lot of tools, because it is required. But I think we need to relook at our own. If you look at what Kavita was saying, the first day at school, when we opened school, children were crying. The little ones wanted to hug the teacher because they're so excited to be back. So digital world has this thing. It is just an enabler, as Kanak said. And we need to focus a lot on, when we are coming up with a tool, how effectively, one thing, we are training the teachers of that school. Are we providing them that support 24/7 so that if they get stuck, they can reach out? Not that there is a plethora of things I have to write here and then that person will get back. I've experienced it, so I don't want to really go into that detail, but I think the effectiveness of its implementation, we still are a long way. There's a long way to go, to be honest.
Well, that sounded like music. Yeah, that's like a master class coming out of a veteran. Anybody in the edtech space offering anything to an educational institution should watch this clipping. I think, Sandeep, you want to put it up on the social media, promote it across all your sponsors. This is what exactly you need to do.
Yeah.
Don't come up with a solution, come up with the after sales implementation. I think that is the buzzword. That's exactly what's needed. Well, with this, I think Kavita is signing off. I believe she's got some another assignment coming up. Thank you, Kavita, for being with us. Really insightful.
I'll also take leave, Sudhir, I'm sorry to butt in. I'll also take leave from everybody, and thank you so much, everybody. And Kanak, it was a pleasure to see you finally after so long. And next time, let's meet real life, not virtually.
Everybody, it was wonderful being on the panel today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Ms. Navya. Thank you, Kavita. Well, I'm back to Kanak and Deepak. I believe we are left with last 5-7 minutes or so. And Kanak and Deepak, I think I'm going to bounce off the same question back to you once again. These tools that we are wanting to bring in, of course, Shalini ma'am has given us some food for thought as to how do you go about evaluating these tools. Of course, we all are doing that internally. But as school management and school owners of large chains, do you see there are some technical glitches or maybe, technical threats or dependency on a third-party owner or any particular technology tool or a certain technology getting obsolete with time, and at the same time any financial risks involved with taking this entire admission process online and making all these things around? Would you want to throw some light on those aspects of it?
Sure. So my big problem with a lot of edtech companies, and I don't want to paint everyone with the same brush, but a lot of the edtech companies, they come to us with the assumption that schools don't do any work, educators do not have any idea about technology, and one size fits all, and they would give you SaaS models that probably do not add up in a school space, in especially places where I run schools. And we try to work a lot with some of these edtech players that this is not how education has to be transacted, and it's like holier than thou attitude, which is causing a lot of problems. Shalini ji was talking about, as some ayaram gayarams. That is precisely the reason as to why it's happened, because to understand the pulse of the student, the teacher, the school, it's important to know the basics of education, which essentially means it has to be transactional, it has to be experiential, and it has to add value. Unless you do that, no matter how much of gadgetry you put into it, no matter how much of software you put into it, it's not going to work. So for evaluating any edtech platform or any service that comes to us, it has to add value to my child. The child has to be at the center of the teaching learning process. If that cannot happen, everything is just, smokes and mirrors, and we don't want to do that. In terms of financials, look, I know I said it in a very light-hearted way with Mr. Mukesh Ambani, but I genuinely believe he understood that economically networking has to work. Only then we bring it to the country. Similarly, with everything that you do, economically it has to work. It has to make sense. We talk about in a tier 2 city, about 50% of the earning goes, 50 to 60% goes to child's education. It is true. A parent is spending 50 to 60% of it. Now, if as a school promoter, if I have to put in about 10% of that earning into an edtech tool, dependency on someone else outside, which is not just adding value, but it's just whistles and smokes and mirrors, it's not something that I would like to do. So it has to be something that adds value as an educator for me, for my teachers, my school, my parents, my child. Also economically, as a school promoter, it has to make full sense to me. Only then it works. Otherwise, schools are now, school chains like ours and yours, we are becoming a little more capable in-house. We can do this backward integration with technology as well. That is something that most schools are also exploring.
That's true. I can't really, agree more on this. Indeed, any edtech company listening to this conversation, and I think, Sandeep, you will have to take this to a large number of people out there to make this entire ecosystem a lot more efficient and a lot more, productive. It's really the need. And like Kanak said, you have to understand the pulse and keep the child at the center. That's the most important thing. Specifically about that SaaS thing is something that even I have spoken to a lot of large number of edtech companies, that not everything can become a SaaS model. It has to have that relevance. It has to have that, maybe that exclusivity factor that, like Kanak said, you can't just assume that a school owner is sitting with something which is absolutely, no knowledge, nothing all about. And we have done a bit of research on this. Mr. Sharma, I think I'd like to bring you in for our last comment, and before I hand it over back to Sandeep for some closing remarks. And of course, Mr. Srinivas, if you have any bits to add here.
Sure.
Yeah.
I missed the question. Can you just come again?
I said I'd like to have your views once again on the same thing. How do you see these technologies? Is there any technology threat in adopting a third-party product, or any financial risk that you see as a school promoter that one should be wary of? I think I'm asking this question on behalf of all our viewers and all school owners who might be listening to us. What are the things that one should be careful with when you are evaluating these tools and, you know, looking at the technical and the financial aspect of it?
Most of the points has already been covered up by Mr. Kanak Gupta. I think his points are fabulous when he's talking about the way he has put up that most of these companies, first of all, they think that school owners are not aware about most of the things which are happening around, especially if the school owner is sitting in a tier 2 or a tier 3 city. When we talk about edtech tools, there are numerous edtech tools available. The first and foremost thing is we need to identify whether it's of any use to us or not. It has to have, and as the market is very price sensitive and price competitive, so not only the usage, whether it is going to be helpful financially, then what is the financial viability of that? So this has to have a financial viability also. Now, as when you talk about SaaS, I think every company is offering SaaS systems right now. And as correctly put up by one of the speakers, that why are we dependent upon these third parties? These are something which can be customized for our own schools. We can develop it. This is not a rocket science any further, that we cannot derive these systems ourselves. When it comes down to threat, yes, obviously there are some threats when you're sharing your whole school data with a third party, which is cloud-based. There can be a number of threats associated with that. But then depending upon the credibility of the companies, there are some fabulous companies in the market. You can always go and check. One dialogue was given was IRAM, GARAM. So we have to be a little vigilant about that to save the cost. Do you want to invest in companies like this? Or rather, if we want a product and there is a viability, let's pay that extra premium and go with the companies which already have a credibility in the market, which are not going to be like just going to elope overnight. So if we have all these parameters as said, then yes, there are some edtech tools which are very important. We should go for that. And then these are companies like that also. Right. Thank you.
That's very true. I think that's something which is quite significant. So there are technologies which have already made inroads. And like Mr. Deepak just now said, there are things which a school now capable of integrating themselves, even if we are supposed to do integration backwards and stuff. But yes, I believe that edtech companies which are now there in the market will have to start investing in new technologies like AI, like data sciences and stuff like that. I believe those are the new avenues which are still, as school management, we are exploring. And before I come back to Sandeep with some of my remarks, I'll go to Mr. Srinivas for his closing remarks. Anything that you'd like to add, sir?
Thanks. So it was a wonderful panel, firstly. My point is there are certain things that EdTech can do well, and that is, pretty well known. Like, for instance, quality test prep is done well, reasonably well, can be done reasonably well. Let me be a little careful there. Can be done reasonably well with EdTech. There are certain things like upskilling. I want to teach my kid certain types of coding. I want to teach him something about blockchain. I want to teach him a little robotics. Those kinds of things, they work well through added modalities that come from EdTech. And if you have a genius, then you go to EdTech maybe. But with the regular model, EdTech can at best be a complement to traditional school. Traditional school is where it happens. I remember listening to Jitendra saying, "Ye kaun chitrakar hai?" And that is where education is in India, and that personal touch is where it should be.
Indeed, that's honestly a true feedback, I guess, for any EdTech company as such. Sandeep, I'm going to come back to you before I sign off and hand over the back to you. I personally want to congratulate. I think each one of us has truly said this on the panel live. But I think before I close this, I'd like to congratulate your team for picking up a topic. Very honestly, I think in the last 2 years of my multiple appearances in all the panel discussions that I've been a part of, I haven't heard the panelists being so candid, upfront and honest about the topic being there. I believe this is truly amazing that I've had so much of learning for each one of us. I understand that in the process we might have made some remarks and statements which may not be sounding very good to a certain set of people, but I think it's a food for thought for a lot of people, the edtech owners and the entrepreneurs who are there in the industry now, and for you also when you pick up your associates and sponsors and everybody who's jumping onto the wagon. That something that Mr. Deepak said: tried, tested, trusted someone who's been there for a very long time. It was like opening a box of worms or a Pandora's box, but this is exactly what was needed. Truly remarkable. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm sure you all have enjoyed the session as much as we all did. Great thing interacting with each one of you. Thank you so much. Back to you, Sandeep. I hope we've not crossed our lines anywhere.
Absolutely not, sir. In fact, it was such a wonderful panel discussion. And on the same line, we totally at Universal Mentors Association totally agree with what each and every panelist have spoken. And keeping that in mind, we are starting our web portal very soon, possibly next month, where we are doing technology review. And this is a free of cost service for all the technology providers. What we will do is we'll be listing few technologies and we'll be asking an educator to review whether it is a form of a video format, whether it is in a form of an article or a white paper format. Any technology, we would be listing it on our website free of cost for all the technology providers, so that a genuine feedback of their technology goes back to the edtech players. So it also becomes a marketing strategy for us, but it is more of a service kind of a activity that we are planning for the education technology ecosystem per se. So having said that, the panel has always lived up to the expectation of the superstar panel discussion that we have. This was such an amazing panel. Thank you so much, Mr. Sudhir, Kanak sir, Shalini ma'am, Deepak sir, and the other panelists who have joined us. Thank you so much, Srinivas sir, for partnering with us and supporting us. I would request all the speakers, although we still have a lot of apprehensions with the technology, but for us to run our shops, we need help with all the educators per se. So I request you to please do visit the technology providers that are there. We have shared their Zoom links to you. You can have a look at it, and the best thing that as educators, what we expect you to do is be honest and tell what is lacking, at least, so that we could fulfill that gap and try to be a better product, better company, and better service provider. This is from the edtech's perspective that I try to put in my kind submission. Thank you so much. It was such a wonderful panel. And for all the listeners, we're going to be live in another 7 minutes. Our next panel, I think, is going to be one of the most amazing panel discussions of the Digital Education Summit and Award. We have close to 9 speakers, 10 speakers for them, and everyone is a personality in its own true sense. So thank you so much for being with us, and stay tuned for our next panel discussion. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you so much. Have a